Hello, today we are going to do the cold start procedure for the JF-17 in DCS. Let's jump in and get started. First, we need to make sure that our aircraft is configured for startup. Let's go into the configuration menu and set this as needed for the mission. For now, I'm going to only have the ground crew load the INS position and take off the covers and remove the ladder. But as you can see, there are other options available here that we will cover in future tutorials. Let's go ahead and also rearm and refuel the aircraft. Today I'm just going to go with a very simple light air-to-air loadout. With those set up, now we can begin the start procedure. We'll start by turning on the battery, AC generator, and DC generator. With power on, we can now set up the lights as required. If it is dark, you can also use a flashlight. Let's also configure the external lights. Let's power on the required avionics on the AAP panel. I will be using the combat button here as it will turn everything on we need for this mission.
Warning.
Let's turn up the volume of our radios, TACAN, and warning system, and turn on the intercom. We can silence the warning by pressing the master warning button. While we are up front, let's go ahead and turn up the brightness of the HUD and UFCP. Now we can press the nav master mode button on the HOTAS. Let's also set up our center MPCD for the INS so that when we get there, it's ready to go. Finally, before we start the engines, let's turn on our VHF/UHF radio. Once you have verified that the covers have been removed, turn on the fuel pump switch, engine control, and uncage the throttle. Now press the ground start button for approximately 4 seconds. You should see start on the status light panel and see the N2 start climbing. Monitor the engine parameters throughout the engine start. Once the start light is extinguished, we can continue. Set the ECS system to normal. Now we can start the SHARS alignment and turn on the emergency hydraulic. You should see SHARS align flashing on the EFIS page. Now we can begin the INS alignment. We will need the true heading of the aircraft to input into the INS page during alignment. You can get this from the knee board or from the F10 map. Once you have your heading, move the INS knob to fast, and once prompted on the INS page, insert the true heading of the aircraft. You should see the remain time counting down once entered. While this is counting down, let's hook up the oxygen and G suit and open the oxygen valve. Being the INS still has a little bit of time left, let's go ahead and let the ground crew update our DTC.
Copy. Updating the DTC now. DTC update complete.
The INS is about finished, so we'll wait for that to finish and then move the INS knob into INS nav mode. Now we can load our DTC by clicking on the DTC slot twice. Once it is loaded, you should see the left MPCD change to a DTC load screen. Select all and press enter. This will transfer all of the data from your DTC to the aircraft. In our case, when the SMS is loaded, you will have to change the configuration.
Warning.
With our loadout, we need to change the AAAG switch to AG because we have a centerline fuel tank on. This will vary depending on your loadout. Let's move up to the UFC and get our IFF, data link, and HNS set up. Press the IFF button and select one of the modes here. There's a lot more detail to cover on this, but for general purposes, turning on one of these systems will work. I'll cover this in much more detail in a later tutorial. We can now turn on our data link by returning to the main page and entering 199 into our COM2 channel. Then we press the L3 button to activate it. Again, this is another system we will cover in more detail in a future tutorial. Finally, let's get our HNS set up. The INS and GPS are now coupled. Now that all of our systems are up and running, let's close and lock our canopy. Finally, we can arm the ejection seat by removing the pin and arming the seat. We will also need to set the trim to neutral by verifying that the lights on the status light panel are all illuminated. We are now ready to taxi. We'll release the parking brake, turn on the taxi light, and enable nose wheel steering. Before taxi, go ahead and set up the MPCDs to your liking. The JF-17 is pretty stable during taxi, just don't get too crazy with the speeds or cornering and you should be fine. Once we're lined up on the center line of the runway, go ahead and disengage the nose wheel steering and apply the brakes. If you have a heavy loadout, you may need to use the trailing edge flaps for takeoff. However, we won't be using them as we have a pretty light loadout. Let's hold the wheel brakes, run the engine up to about 80% and check for any issues. Everything looks good, so let's release the brakes and push the throttle forward to at least 90%. You can go full afterburner if you need to, but being we are light, I'm just going to keep it around 90-95%. At around 120, we will go ahead and gently start pulling back on the stick. Try to maintain 10 degrees angle of attack, and the aircraft should gently lift off the runway. Once you have positive climb and are at least 30 feet off the ground, retract the landing gear and retract the flaps if you were using them. And that's it. Now we're ready to go fly a mission. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe for future tutorials, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.